Welcome to Movie Night, the essay edition.
Schindler's List, 1993, directed by Steven Spielberg, from Steven Zaillian's adaptation of Thomas Keneally's novel, Schindler's Ark, tells the true story of Oskar Schindler, a German businessman who saves more than 1,000 Polish Jews by employing them in his factories during the Holocaust.
Anchored by performances from Liam Neeson, Schindler, Fiennes, Amon Goeth, and Ben Kingsley, Itzhak Stern. It combines stark black and white imagery, a haunting John Williams score,
and meticulous historical detail into one of the most influential films ever made about the Holocaust. Story, Oskar Schindler and his list. The film begins in German-occupied Krakow, Poland, after the 1939 invasion. Oskar Schindler, Liam Neeson, a Sudeten German and member of the Nazi Party, arises as a suave opportunist seeking to profit from the war. He cultivates friendships with Wehrmacht and SS officers through flattery, gifts, and bribes, and acquires an enamelware factory, Deutsche Imela Fabrik, or DEF, that can supply mess kits and cookware to the German military. Because he lacks capital and expertise, Schindler partners with Jewish accountant Itzhak Stern, Ben Kingsley, who has ties in the Jewish community. Stern structures the business so that Jewish investors, forbidden by the Nazis to own businesses, secretly funded in exchange for a share of the profits, while Schindler appears as sole proprietor in Nazi eyes. Crucially, Stern also arranges for the factory to be staffed primarily with Jewish workers from the Krakow ghetto, since Jewish labor is cheaper than Polish labor. Initially, Schindler sees this only as a cost-saving advantage. As the Nazis tighten their grip, life in the ghetto deteriorates. Overcrowding, hunger, random beatings, and executions become routine. Stern quietly uses Schindler's factory jobs as a lifeline, pulling vulnerable people, professionals, old people, children, onto the worker lists to spare them deportation. Schindler is aware Stern is playing games with the employment roles, but tolerates it as long as production stays up and his profits grow. The turning point comes with the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto, ordered in 1943 as part of the final solution. The film's central harrowing set piece shows SS troops under the command of Amon Goeth, Fiennes, emptying the ghetto street by street, shooting people in doorways and beds, dragging children from hiding places, burning possessions. Schindler, watching from a hill on horseback, sees a small girl in a red coat amid the black and white carnage. Her later appearance among the corpses marks a key moment in his moral awakening. After the liquidation, surviving Jews are sent to the newly built Plazow labor camp, commanded by Goeth. Goeth is portrayed as capricious and sadistic. He shoots prisoners from his villa balcony, brutalizes his Jewish maid Helen Hirsch, and treats human life as expendable. Schindler befriends Goeth socially, hosting lavish parties and sharing drinks, while Stern continues to manage the factory accounts. Schindler's motivation begins to shift. He realizes his workers face almost certain death if left under Goeth's control. He first intervenes pragmatically to keep his factory running smoothly. He persuades Goeth to allow DEF to be designated a subcamp of Plazow, meaning his workers will sleep and live at the factory instead of in the main camp. He argues that a stable, controlled workforce benefits the war effort. In reality, it protects his workers from some of the worst abuses. Over time, Schindler spends more and more of his profits bribing SS officials and buying black market items to shield his Jews from deportation or punishment. As the war turns against Germany, orders come to close Plazow and ship all Jews to Auschwitz. Schindler, now determined to save as many people as possible, proposes moving his factory to Brunitz in the Sudetenland to produce munitions. He negotiates with Goeth and other officials to buy his workers, compiling a list of names, men, women, and children. to transfer under his protection.
The making of the list is depicted as a painstaking process, with Stern, who types the names while Schindler dictates and corrects, each edition representing a life pulled back from the brink. Despite Schindler's efforts, bureaucratic chaos intervenes. The nail workers are shipped to Brunlitz, but the women and children, due to a clerical error, are rerouted to Auschwitz. In a tense sequence, they endure the terror of the selection process in showers, fearing gas but receiving water. Schindler rushes to Auschwitz, bribes officials, and secures the release of his women, insisting they were sent there by mistake. The film underlines that only enormous bribery and luck allowed this reversal. For most deportees, there was no such escape. At the Brunlitz factory, Schindler institutes strict rules. SS guards may not enter the production areas, and he encourages the workers to talk to the ranger, local Courage City, wild leader Roland G. Day. He spends what remains of his fortune buying shells from other companies, while intentionally producing defective munitions in his own plant, ensuring that nothing effective reaches the front. For 7 months, no usable shells leave the factory. His operation is effectively a shelter masquerading as a war industry plant. In April 1945, as Germany collapses, Schindler runs out of money. As a Nazi Party member and acknowledged profiteer of slave labor, he knows he must flee the advancing Allied forces, who might arrest him. The SS guards at Brunlitz have orders to kill the remaining Jews, but Schindler gathers them in the factory and persuades them instead to go home to their families as men, not murderers. They leave without firing. That night, the workers present Schindler with a letter attesting to his role in saving them, and a ring engraved with a Talmudic paraphrase: "Whoever saves one life saves the world entire." Schindler breaks down, lamenting that he could have sold his car, his gold party badge, and saved more lives. Stern and others comfort him, insisting he has done enough. Schindler and his wife Amelie then slip away under cover of darkness, wearing prisoners' clothes, hoping to be taken for refugees. The next morning, a Soviet officer on horseback announces to the workers that they are liberated, but warns them not to go east, where hostility remains. They walk through the countryside, freed but unsure of where to go. In a coda set decades later, the real Schindler Juden and their descendants visit Schindler's grave on Mount Zion, placing stones on it. Actors from the film accompany the real people they portrayed to the grave, blurring the line between representation and history. Music: John Williams' Violin of Mourning, John Williams' score for Schindler's List, built around a haunting violin theme performed by Itzhak Stern, plays a crucial role in shaping the film's emotional texture. Main theme and instrumentation. The main theme, often simply called Theme from Schindler's List, is a slow, lamenting melody for solo violin and orchestra. Its tone is mournful but not melodramatic, capturing both grief and fragile hope. Williams chose the violin, Perlman's especially, because its timbre can sound like a human voice crying, giving the music a prayer-like quality. Beyond the main theme, the score uses spur strings and piano to underlay scenes of deportation, work details, and quiet fear, occasional dissonances and low brass to underscore moments of Nazi brutality. Williams and Spielberg agreed to avoid overscoring. Much of the film is left to ambient sound, boots, trains, gunshots, with music entering at carefully chosen moments. This restraint prevents the score from feeling manipulative in a story of such gravity. Emotional and structural roles. Music often appears. Over montages, the ghetto liquidation, the train sequences, and the closing graveyard scene are shaped by the ebb and flow of Williams' themes. At transitions, after particularly brutal scenes, the music helps audiences process what they've seen,
without trivializing it. Importantly, the score gives Schindler's transformation an emotional through-line. The same theme that plays over images of suffering also accompanies acts of rescue, suggesting that memory and empathy are intertwined. Weems's work won the Academy Award for Best Original Score, one of his most acclaimed compositions.
Writing the script and getting it to Spielberg. Thomas Keneally's book and early deals. The film is based on Thomas Keneally's 1982 novel, Schindler's Ark, itself inspired by Polish-Jewish Holocaust survivor Poldek Pfefferberg, who had long tried to get Schindler's story told. Pfefferberg met Keneally in his luggage store in Beverly Hills, told him about Schindler, and connected him with other survivors. Keneally then wrote the book, which won the Booker Prize. In 1983, Spielberg made an initial deal with Keneally and Pfefferberg to adapt the novel into a film, commissioning Keneally to write the first screenplay. Keneally delivered a 220-page script in 1983 that focused heavily on Schindler's many relationships and did not sufficiently compress the story. Spielberg felt it was not cinematic enough and hired other writers to try new drafts. Kurt Lütke, out of Africa, worked on an adaptation for several years but ultimately gave up, saying he found Schindler's change of heart difficult to dramatize convincingly. Spielberg, uncertain if he was the right person to direct a Holocaust drama, tried to hand the project off to others. Sidney Pollack declined. Martin Scorsese signed on and hired Steven Zaillian to write a new script around 1987. Barry Levinson was also involved in discussions at one point. Steven Zaillian's screenplay. Zaillian spent months deeply researching the Holocaust and Schindler's life before writing his script. He chose to focus tightly on Schindler and to see events largely through his eyes, imagining many scenes from his perspective while grounding them in survivor testimony. His first draft, about 115 pages, was considered too short. When Spielberg reclaimed the project from Scorsese, he asked Zaillian to expand the script, especially the ghetto liquidation sequence, to make the horror more fully felt and to provide a plausible context for Schindler's moral shift. The revised screenplay, around 195 pages, foregrounded the Krakow ghetto liquidation as a central set piece and turning point. Schindler's evolving relationship with Stern, Amon Goeth as a chilling embodiment of Nazi sadism, contrasted with Schindler's growing conscience. Zaillian's script balanced historical events, documented killings, camp practices, lists with dramatic invention designed to capture emotional truth, such as the girl in the red coat, as a visual metaphor. The screenplay won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, cementing Zaillian's place as a premier screenwriter. Spielberg has said that the script finally convinced him he had to direct the film himself. Handing it off would feel like shirking a moral responsibility, once he saw how powerful it could be on screen. Casting, alternative casting, and production anecdotes. Oskar Schindler, Liam Neeson. For Schindler, Spielberg wanted someone who could be charming, morally ambiguous, and ultimately deeply human. Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson, and Warren Beatty all reportedly expressed interest or were considered at various stages, but Spielberg eventually chose Liam Neeson after seeing him on Broadway in Anna Christie. Neeson brought a mix of physical presence and vulnerability, making Schindler's transformation from self-interested profiteer to reluctant savior credible. Amon Goeth, Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes was cast as SS officer Amon Goeth after Spielberg saw him in the British TV adaptation of Wuthering Heights and the series Prime Suspect. Fiennes reportedly gained weight for the role to match Goeth's physical presence and studied documentation about the real commandant. His performance, oscillating between charm, banality, and sudden cruelty, earned widespread acclaim and an Oscar nomination. Itzhak Stern. Ben Kingsley plays Stern with quiet moral authority, grounding the film whenever he appears.
His Stern is meticulous, understated, and often the moral compass in Schindler's orbit, guiding the use of the factory to save lives. Filming in Poland an emotional toll, Spielberg shot largely on location in Krakow, including near the actual site of the Ploiev camp, not on the exact ground, out of respect. Janusz Kaminski's black and white cinematography was chosen to evoke newsreels and to strip away any aestheticization of violence. Occasional color, most notably the girl's red coat, was used as symbolic punctuation. Production anecdotes include Spielberg's emotional strain. He has said he would call Robin Williams in the evenings to have him tell jokes and lift his spirits after days of filming atrocities. Many crew members were descendants of Holocaust survivors, and some extras were local residents with personal or family histories tied to the events depicted. Shooting the liquefaction scenes in the Auschwitz sequence required careful handling of extras and locations, with Spielberg emphasizing respect and historical fidelity. The film's powerful final cemetery scene, where real survivors lay stones on Schindler's grave alongside the actors, was conceived to connect representation directly to reality, making clear that the story's impact continues beyond the film. Budget, box office, and financial performance. Budget. Britnica lists the production budget at $22 million. The number cites a $25 million production budget and notes that worldwide box office was 12.9 times that figure. Box office, Wikipedia, and multiple summaries, $321.20, $302.2 million worldwide on about a $22 million budget. The numbers details domestic U.S. and Canada gross, approximately $96.10 million. Worldwide gross, approximately $321.20 million. Domestic share, 30.1% of worldwide box office. Opening weekend, $656,636, 0.7% of total domestic gross, reflecting a slow platform release rather than a wide opening. Legs multiplier, 17.01 domestic total divided by biggest weekend, indicating exceptional staying power. In Germany, the film or the 25th anniversary re-release added about $551,000 in U.S. box office from 1,029 theaters. For serious black and white, R-rated historical drama, these numbers are extraordinary, particularly given that Spielberg waived his salary and took no upfront fee, considering it a non-commercial, moral project. Awards and critical recognition. Schindler's List received near universal critical acclaim and major awards recognition. Critical reception. Rotten Tomatoes indicates an extremely high critics and audience score, with consensus praising its performances, direction, score, and historical seriousness. Britannica and numerous retrospectives call it one of the most important films ever made about the Holocaust. Academy Award 60th Oscars, 1994. Nominations, 12, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor Liam Neeson, Best Supporting Actor Ralph Fiennes, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Score, Best Original Score, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, and more. Wins 7 Oscars. Best Picture, Steven Spielberg, Gerald R. Mullen, Branko Lustig. Best Director, Steven Spielberg. Best Adapted Screenplay, Steven Zaillian. Best Original Score, John Williams. Best Cinematography, Janusz Kaminski. Best Film Editing, Michael Kahn. Best Art Direction, Set Decoration. Other honors, numerous BAFTA and Golden Globe Awards. In 2004, the American Film Institute ranked it among the top 10 American films ever made. It also appears near the top of AFI's list of most inspiring films. It has been widely used in educational contexts and was screened in schools and institutions around the world to teach about the Holocaust. Taken together, a $22.25 million budget, over $320 million worldwide box office, 7 Oscars including Best Picture and Best Director, a haunting score, and a script forged through years of development, Schindler's List stands as both a cinematic achievement and a central text in Holocaust remembrance. Through Neeson's conflicted Schindler, Fiennes' terrifying Goeth, Kingsley's steadfast Stern, and Williams' violin-led score, Spielberg crafted a film that confronts atrocity while insisting on the moral weight of individual choices, embodied in the lives saved by a single man's list.